couple hours after Vanessa left, Mike stood in the kitchen and watched the sky outside his window turn orange. For the fifth time, he redialed Max's number. When he put the phone to his ear, he heard the same thing he already heard 4 times. "Hey, it's Maxine," Max's voice said. "Leave a message, or don't." Mike sighed and dropped his phone. He glanced over at Abby, already in her fitted PJs, pink with the bright red stars all over. Abby was sitting on the sofa. She had Dolph tucked under one arm, and her drawing pad was on her lap. Of course she was drawing. The TV was on the background. Of course she didn't seem to be paying attention to any of it. Mike looked back outside again. The sky was still orange, and the orange color was getting deeper. He looked at his watch. He was running out of time. "Where are you?" Mike asked out loud as he dialed Max's number for the 6th time. Mike listened to Max's messages once again. He heaved another, louder sigh. He looked over to Abby. She lifted her glance and met his gaze. Rubber crunching over loose rocks and broken gravel, engine hunching. Mike's old car crouched to stop against the curb in front of Freddy's. Mike looked through his windshield at the old building. "This is a very bad idea," he thought. When the sun had gone down, a thick fog had rolled down the hills at the edge of the town. The moon, slightly larger tonight than the night before, still managed to deliver its shine, but the shine was smeared by the dense, moist air. The hazel moonlight of the pizzeria made the building look outwardly. Mike's imagination turned the building into a big hand, just wanting to reach out and grab the car. Mike turned and looked at his sister, who sat primly upright in the back seat, still in her PJs and still clenching Dolph. Abby was enclosed next to a large backpack which Mike had stuffed with blankets for a hidey tent and a sleeping bag. Abby was looking eager at Freddy's. You would have thought that they were outside an amusement park. "This isn't a vacation, Abs," Mike said. "You're not here to have fun." Abby kept her gaze at the pizzeria. "Okay," she said. Mike deepened his voice, intending to sound stern. "I will work," he said. "You will sleep. And under no circumstances are you about to leave my office." Abby kept staring at Freddy's. Mike leaned over the seat and waved a hand in front of his sister's face. "I need you to look at me and tell me you understand." Abby didn't shift her gaze. "I understand," she said. Mike raised his voice. "Abby." Finally, Abby looked at him. "I understand." She managed to burden the word with 2 tones of attitude. The heavy metal door clanked shut. As usual, after Michael ushered his sister inside the restaurant, as the bone-rattling tank stopped reverberating, Mike stared at the lobby in dismay. "What happened?" Abby asked. Mike's gaze hopped from the broken glass to the ragged holes of dry wall. He took in the bench towards the vanilla. He frowned at the stream of quarters that seemed to be laid down the hallway. Mike adjusted the scrap of the large backpack he had slung over his left shoulder. He looked down at his sister. "Give me your hand." Surprisingly, she did no hesitation. Mike began guiding her forward. It is best to weave around the worst of the glass shards, but navigating Abby through the destruction was unnerving. He felt like he was leading his sister to her execution. "It smelled funny in here," Abby said as Mike deliberately put his body between hers and the archway of the dining room. One glance through the arch told Mike that the damage in the room was even worse than he was seeing in the lobby. Not that the hallway was much better. Like the lobby, the halfway door was carpeted in glass, and trails of coins continue. Abby was right about the smell. Freddy's had never smelled great, but now its odor is even worse. The smell was pungent and made Mike's nostrils burn. Continuing to step carefully, Mike got Abby down the length of the hall. He ushered her into the office. Once there, he let go of Abby's hand and shut the door. Abby stepped forward and looked around, her eyes bright and curious. The office, strangely, appeared to be untouched by the vandals. All electronic equipment was as it should be. "Huh," Mike thought. Dismissing the mystery of why vandals hadn't destroyed the CCTV monitors, Mike turned his attention to getting Abby set up. He slipped the backpack on his shoulder. "Help me make your hidey tent," Mike said to Abby. Abby, who had been inching towards the desk and the monitor, turned back toward Mike. She nodded. For the next few minutes, Mike and Abby worked together to form the hidey tent from the blankets, using a file cabinet as tent posts. They unrolled her sleeping bag, and Abby crawled inside of it. Once there, she snuggled into a ball in her side, Dolph firmly pressed against her chest. Mike, crouching on his heels in front of the makeshift tent, was happy to see Abby's lip was drooping. "Do you want me to turn off the lights?" he asked. Abby shook her head. Her lips fluttered even lower. "Good night," Mike said. Abby didn't respond. Her eyes had closed. Mike backed through the overlapping blankets and started to let them fall together, and he paused when Abby spoke. "It's like we're camping," Abby said. Her voice was nearly whispered, soft, groggy. Mike opened his mouth to respond, but he saw his sister's mouth drop slightly, her breathing slow. Mike smiled and closed at the hidey tent. He exhaled softly, the concern that he was making a mistake bringing Abby to Freddy's habitat now that she was tucked in. It's going to be okay, he thought. Mike straightened and crossed over to the desk. He checked the CCTV monitor, scanning all the interior feeds. Wow, he thought, someone really did a number to this place. Mike frowned. He was sure he locked up the night the storm, but he felt still guilty for what happened. He glanced at the hidey tent. Pee-wee, childish snores. Sounds were coming from with overlapping blankets. Mike looked at the back of the monitors, sighed. Vandalizing cleanup wasn't in his job description, but he couldn't leave the place the way it is. He listened to Abby snoring for a few more seconds, then he left the office, closing the door behind him. Looking at the closed door for a moment, Mike hesitated. She was safe in there, wasn't she? He shook his willings. Sure, she was. Mike took a step forward, and clinging the crunching glass beneath his feet. Step 1, he decided to have a sweeping all the glass. Resolved, Mike strode down the hall. He ignored the crackling and tinkling sounds that his feet made as they shattered more glass and kicked away its quarters. Halfway down the hall, Mike stopped in front of the frosted glass front door of the supply closet. Opening the door, he reached in and up. He put his hands and pulled string that wasn't in the closet's single bolt. Then he hesitated. The closet wasn't covered by CCTV. And given the chaotic shambles on the rest of the pizzeria, he wasn't sure if he was going to find it there. Mike yanked the pull string. The bolt came out, and Mike glanced at a perfectly organized collection of janitorial equipment. Maybe it was a little costly, but otherwise it seemed to be... Wait, what was that? Glancing at the open door, Mike noticed a few drops of red on the frosted glass, and a faint smear. Was that blood? Mike shrugged. Maybe one of the vandals cut themselves. Mike stepped forward and turned to left. Instantly he jumped back. Oh, good grief, he said. What had startled him was the stupid balloon boy. Mike made a face at a grinning little bug-eyed doll. How did you get in here? Mike asked the doll. Vandals with a sense of humor, he thought. Mike turned the boy's face toward the wall, ignoring the lit and pit-pat of his nerve ending. What did the stupid doll get to him? Mike grabbed the push broom. He quickly turned around, tugged on the light cord, and left the supply closet. He shut the door firmly behind him. For a couple hours, Mike put his nose in the grinding stone. Having been in a janitorial several times, Mike could handle a push broom like a pro, so the work, though not as much fun as in the world, wasn't difficult. Starting in the hallway, Mike swept everything that littered the floor with a pile to push against one side wall to the dining room. The pile included all the glass of the hall and the lobby and all the coins that were strewn around. He was tempted to go through the pile and pull out the coins. It would be kind of like a planting of gold. But he decided to deal with that later. Mike considered all the dining room furniture, making another pile of broken glass and tables. In the arcade room, he couldn't really do much with the destroyed game cabinets. All he could really do was more sweeping. The glass that littered the floor was there jointed the other glass in the dining room pile. When he was sweeping from the stage, Mike encountered a yellow puddle of a strong aroma odor. Gross, Mike said. Pushing his broom ahead of him, Mike headed to the kitchen. When he passed through the service doors in the vast stainless and steel domain, he sighed. This was going to be another big job. But Mike tackled it. Running shelving units, returning pots and pans, dented but still usable to their place, and sweeping up more broken shards. These were thicker pieces of dinnerware. Mike got to the kitchen back in semi-order. Then he returned to the task that he originally brought him here. He filled a couple buckets of warm, soapy water. Mike took the bucket to the stage, returned to the supply closet to get a mop. Then he headed back to the stage again. He spent the next several minutes throughout cleaning the air of the base of the center stage. He even cleaned past the area, wanting to be sure he didn't miss a single speck of what that vandal had left behind. Once Mike was done with the cleanup, he left the buckets where he was. He'll take care of them later. He was running out of steam, and he still had a lot to do. Returning to the supply closet, Mike found a dustpan and box of heavy-duty garbage bags. He then tackled the task of turning this pile of glass and debris into 4 tidy bags of vandal debris. And he filtered out the coins. Not sure what to do with the pile of quarters, Mike put them in another bag. He took the overstuffed bags back to the holding dock, where he would discover how the vandals had gotten in. He found a broken padlock lying on the floor. A new one had already been installed by the other door. He saw that the back door of the kitchen was broken down. The break-in hadn't been Mike's fault at all. Finally, Mike retreated to the archway of the bag of coins and his mop and broom. He stopped there to service his handiwork, and he wasn't fully satisfied with it. The room looked better than it had, and it was the best he could do at the moment. Mike took a mop and broom and back to the supply closet. He stowed the bag and coins there too, Dan his shoulders and back yelling at him all for physical labor he put them through. Mike returned to his office. Mike opened the office door slowly, and he stepped softly as he entered. He looked towards the Heidi tent, and he was happy to hear Abby still quietly snoring away. He glanced up the clock above the tent. It was almost 4 a.m. Mike looked at the desk chair. Briefly, he thought about the promise he made to Vanessa. But the chair beckoned, and he was wiped out. Mike gave in to his need to rest and the compulsion of his routine. He set up his cassette player, rested his gaze on the taped-together poster, and in seconds, his eyes were closing and the pine trees were swaying in his mind. No pills needed.